Welcome to Advanced Technology Consultants. This is a sample presentation for effective management of R&D organizations and groups. Let's go through the table of contents. First, we're going to talk about key R&D processes to familiarize ourselves with those, and which we will cover each one in more details in the seminar. Then we touch upon the historical evolution of R&D management. Next, it would be introduction to organization and R&D funding in the United States and the world. Funding is an important component. In the context of R&D or R&D managers or directors of R&D, they should be aware of funding sources, trends in economical cycles, and so forth. So we'll see here where the monies are, who is sponsoring what type of research in the United States and in the world. And next, we talk about R&D organization and research classifications. In particular, make distinction between what we mean by research and development. Then we also have discussion about the differences between basic research and applied research, and the importance of each one and how each contributes towards new technology development, and the issues related to policy, government policy, and sponsoring basic research. Unique issues of R&D management. Then we will formally discuss organizational structure, how one should have a structure designed for an organization to be successful and effective. So, we will first talk about organizational structure, and then we will talk about specific structures for R&D and how it appears within the structure of the entire organization. We look at the variables of this structure, types of organizational structures, their advantages and disadvantages that we had throughout the history. And examples of different organizational charts. You'll see many of them so that your eyes get familiarized with different types. Then we talk about the technology, R&D, and organization chart, how these are related. Organization structure for innovation is a very important topic these days, and we will touch upon that both here and also later in the context of other topics. Then we will talk about the components, important key components required for R&D organization. If you are building a new research organization, you have to be aware of that. If you have already had R&D department or division, well, of course you know about these components, but we will go more details and see what are the issues that are important. For example, staff. What are the characteristics? How should the staffs be selected, and how the resources are available, and who are they, and the type of people. What are their psychology? How we can motivate them. That's a different subject later we will talk about. Ideas. And in the context of ideas, how can we generate ideas? From what sources? How can we collect? How can we distribute these ideas amongst them? How can we enhance the number of idea generation and issues like that? Communication, of course, is a very critical thing. The funding and the culture, which is another important factor. of successful R&D organizations, and for that matter, for even other departments, the culture that is created within the organization, in particular the R&D, is very critical. So here there are many examples that you see. We contrast that both historically and different companies. One thing that is very important is to match a person and a job. We will discuss here in brief and then later in the context of team and group formation. Motivation in R&D environment is a critical component because these individuals that are specifically in R&D, we ideally would like them to be self-motivated, but there are factors that are important within even highly motivated individuals put in the context of bad management. You'll see they be demotivated. Well, these people might even depart, and they have. And we will go through a 1 hour video of an important example. So you'll see that even the Nobel Prize winners, where they were leaders and past a certain stage, they started treating their very intelligent employees in a suboptimal way, and eventually these people decided to depart and leave and have their own companies. So this is very important. We will learn what science, what research has shown. A human behavior model, we will discuss reward system and its change to sustain and support scientific technical career. Organizational structure for optimum communication in the context of motivation. And then leadership is a kind of perennial subject. We're all looking for great leaders, and many of us had experiences that for one reason or the other, people put in the position of leadership but had no leadership skills nor trainings. And so the whole idea here is, at least it's good to have trainings so that these individuals learn do's and don'ts and mistakes that others have done in the past. So leadership and issues in R&D, in particular, our focus is going to be R&D organizations, R&D divisions, leadership style. What are the specific leadership styles that are conducive to that environment in R&D? Leadership in R&D organizations, a mutual influence process, and leadership style case studies. We will have numerous case studies on all of these subjects throughout the seminar. An important component of this seminar is many ample opportunities for discussions among the attendees here. And I believe that we all learn immensely and through these discussions. Technology transfer issue is an important subject. This could be within an organization where by technology we mean general information of doing things. It could be gadget or combine usually hardware and know-how information. From, let's say, R&D going to manufacturing, to production, to marketing, and so forth. And it could be within the organization, or it could be within boundaries of countries. So first we clarified what do we mean by technology that we want to transfer. And the technology transfer stages, there are different stages, and each stage we will go into details and as to what are the requirements, what are the things that we have to be aware, and mistakes that people have done in the past, and so on. And then innovation comes into the context, the role of people and market, organizational issues in technology transfer, There are different strategies that have been successful in the past and exercised by companies such as IBM, Procter Campbell's, and others. And we will have many case studies here to see both the successful and the ones that were failures. Creating an effective and productive R&D organization. What do you mean by effectiveness? Organizational effectiveness. Specific characters of inventors and innovators. There's distinction between inventors and innovators. And what are the characteristics anyhow? Management, researcher, and peer relationship. We will talk about that. Group and team formation. You will be in a position that you have to form a team. What are the things that you have to be aware of forming teams? And who should be in the team? And so on, in order to be effective, in order to be successful and achieve the goals and objectives. Then there are ethos of scientific community, we will talk. Strategic planning is a critically important exercise for all organizations and companies. Within the corporate strategic planning, we have also technology strategic planning, or R&D strategic planning, and we will discuss about that. A strategy in the context of corporation, then technology strategy, and then strategic planning. You will see a generic approach to strategic planning, and you could go through this planning and draft the best strategic planning ever done. But if it's not implemented effectively, it would be useless. On top of that, strategic thinking in management is very critical. And many failures as a result of not thinking strategically or managing strategically. And there would be examples in many cases of here, strategic plans from IBM to other companies. New product development process obviously is very important. One could talk about this subject alone for 3 days. But here is a very concise and effective discussion in a context of R&D, because it seems most of the R&Ds are either within is done through what we call new product development process. So we will touch upon that, and you'll see some successful ones and some generic approach that be used by prominent companies. Then we'll go into processes associated with effective R&D team. Now we will revisit the key components that have been successful in the successful organizations, that they be very effective. And we, of course, already defined by that stage what do we mean by effectiveness of the R&D division or organization. So we'll touch upon leadership, teamwork, and lastly simultaneity. Now simultaneity is very important. Toyota is a leader in this. Essentially, or concurrent engineering, the whole new product development process these days, we would like to shrink it and be able to make it as fast as possible. For example, starting from new concept car in 12 months instead of 18 months, and from the idea all the way to the product. And how do we do that? Well, Toyota has essentially is a leader in this, and many companies, of course, now they're following it. So we will discuss that here. A strategic selection of R&D project. Well, many companies, especially the large one, medium and large one, they have multiple R&D projects. And each year at a certain stage, a decision has to be made whether how to distribute the resources amongst these projects. So we will discuss here ways and means of optimization of the portfolio of R&D projects. One of the few tools that are very important both in technology and R&D management is technology road mapping, economic forecasting, and investment opportunities. So we will touch upon that here. As a director of the manager of the R&D has to be aware of this components, and you will see some technology road mapping, generic approach and steps to go through, forecasting economic cycles, because if you're putting money on a certain things, you'll have to be aware of the economic cycles, and or at least understand the language of a consultant. You could hire that to predict. Many companies, particularly investment companies, hire the previous chairman of the Federal Reserve as a consultant, but they have to understand also some basic knowledge about the economic. So you see some here coverage. And then these days there's a lot of talk about disruptive technologies. What are they, and how do we evaluate whether technology is disruptive or not? And here's a very hot subject, and we will discuss here. And lastly, there's going to be a lot of case studies and discussions amongst the attendees throughout the seminar, and consider this thing as an extremely valuable component of this seminar. And then I'll summarize and conclude. Here's a copyright page which tells you a limitation as to how you could use this information when you purchase the presentation. There are certain basic objectives set for this presentation. One is to share with you personal experiences, and those from a variety of sources. And it's an introduction to the topics that are discussed in this seminar, and is intended to build sufficient background to easily fly beyond the depth and breadth that is covered during this 3-day seminar. And it's also meant to instill appreciation of the art of R&D management. And also, it was the goal to improve your management practices, at least at the cognitive level. And lastly, and to be an eye-opener. So, first we're going to discuss about key R&D processes. Now, here's a generic key processes in a corporate new product R&D. This is taken from Pratt & Whitney's aviation industry. I'll give you an example about different industries, but they all have key component or processes that are very similar, although there are differences also. Well, you should look at this. These 4 items that are here, or processes, as continuous and parallel processes going on. Well, let's just start from here. First is going to be discovery, then there's going to be decision making, and then you're going to develop and deploy, and here's your enterprise and that which connects to the outside market, world market, or your country's market. Now, the first, in terms of discovery, is going to be the method to explore market opportunities, such as it could be the methods that use strategic road mapping or technology road mapping, scenario workshops, or it could be crosstalk between industry and academic environment, and so on. Well, then you come up with some ideas here, you come here and to decision making. Well, here it is where technology investment decisions is drawn upon what? Collaboration of experts here sit down and they use a strategic road mapping, and also analytical assessment of value to select proposed technology solutions here. So once you've done that, then you have to develop and manage projects. Usually, it's very popular to use what's called a stage gate process approach, maintaining a strategic focus and a continuous technology maturation assessment. And then you go to deployment or deploying. It would be proactive development planning, including process and culture change support. So that is a kind of bird eye view of processes we call R&D system, consists of these key. So it's kind of coarse way of looking at the whole R&D activity. Now, this is a technology and product roadmap. I'm going to introduce to you what's called technology readiness level. And you will be in a position that you have to look at different technologies, and it would be useful to have a way, some kind of like a thermometer that measures temperature. In this case, you measure the stage of the technology or technology maturation stage. In this case, we call it technology readiness level. Here's an example for Pratt & Whitney, which is a technology readiness level system, and its equivalent, which is down here. These are terminologies used by Pratt & Whitney, and this is kind of generic product development or technology development. You always start from just ideas here, and then you go through the proof of concept and the product feasibility and the prototyping. It could be, for example, beyond the different names like preliminary. Also, while you're doing proof of concept, here you'll do preliminary market analysis, intellectual property, seeking funding, these things going on. Also, you'll do some proof of concept and you recognize that there are opportunities, but then you go after funding. Here, generally a seed funding gets some proof of concept going on, but then you need more source of a permanent source or the stable source of funding. So these are go all in parallel. Fundamental understanding and prototyping. So as far as the R&D is the Pratt & Whitney technology readiness level is concerned, you see there's similar basic principle, technology application, proof of concept. There's going to be rig testing, for example, developing a new engine. Would be rig testing, minimal design space, but here is going to be rig or core, there's going to be expanded design space, and then system level validation, and then there is also theory level 7, 8, 9, which you take this engine, you enter engine to flight testing, and then certification and qualification, and lastly going to be in use or in service. Now, here's our thermometer. We will talk about that. TRL level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is a critical point here, which is TRL level 6. Prior to that, you see, it says basic principles, technology application, proof of concept, and so on. At the TRL level 6, well, the important thing happens. It would be a start of detailed design. Technically, product development program starts from this point. And what happens at TRL level 6? Let's go through this diagram here. And here is, let's say, the first thing that you do, customer, whoever is customer. Let's say Pratt & Whitney making engine for government or for some kind of a airline company. Customer and the market requirements. Requirements could come from many sources. This is part of the systems engineering that big discussions about requirements. Some could be from regulations. For example, emission regulations, environmental issues impose the limitation on, for example, nitric oxide or soot from the engine, particulate from the engine. And so you'll have to redesign to a new engine. Fuel economy is an important factor. transition into, there are some requirements by the government in the use of type of fuel and so on. So you got this market demand and customer requirements. Then it comes into this, it's a product and service plan. So product opportunities is born by the analysis of this requirement. And then there's going to be what they call it notional engine studies are done here. As a result of the notional engine studies, which could be computer simulation, or it could be a little bit quick and dirty experiment and test laboratories combined, then you get system technology requirements. You recognize that in order to achieve this customer or market requirements, you need to develop several technologies. Technology 1, 2, 3, 4. So then there's going to be technology prioritization here. Of course, a panel of experts will make a decision here. So then there's going to be technology portfolio that goes into, it's got Pratt & Whitney here is the advanced technology plan. Now, then as a result of this would be required validation. Then it's going to be technology validation. You can see here's the engine in the laboratory being tested. And then validated technology comes here. Here's a border at TRL level 6. We go into technology insertion. Now, in brief, at TRL level or in the TRL level 6, there's going to be system and subsystem model or prototype demonstration in a relevant environment. Now, relevant environment and prototype are two key terms here. Now, as much as possible, you want to simulate the environment within which this engine is going to operate. And of course, it's going to be a prototype. It means it's not going to be exact and actual engine. So let's look at this thing. There's going to be representative model, or it's better if you have a prototype system, which is well beyond that of TRL5. It is also tested in the relevant environment and represents a major step up in the technology's demonstration readiness. An example would be includes testing a prototype in a high fidelity a laboratory environment or in a simulated operation environment. So this is what's going on within the between TRL level 6 and 7. Now let's look at here what happens to TRL 6 a little bit from the perspective of the Pratt & Whitney. Specifically, requires that the technology be validated in a system-level relevant environment, as indicated here. Most typically, an engine is tested, an engine test, in the relevant design space to validate what they call it engineering standard work for the technology. Then an explicit technology development plan, which you see here, technology development plan, is reviewed and approved for each technology. For each technology that is listed here in the portfolio. So, this technology development planning specifies all the criterion activities required to mature the technology and validate new standard work associated with achieving TRL level of 6. So, here's again some details of the how TRL level is used for the R&D and new product development within the aviation industry, in particular Pratt & Whitney. Now, in we also talk about what's called manufacturing readiness level, because every time you talk about the big, huge or large technology like engine, which is a complex technology, then there's going to be a lot of new manufacturing technologies as well. So in parallel goes with this, you see MRL, we call MRL 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the relationship to system milestones. These are milestones for the whole system: concept refinement, technology development, system development, and production and deployment. And down here you see the TRL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and relationship of the MRL to TRL. Well, we could have spent some time looking at some of these things, but I just wanted, the purpose of this slide was to give you awareness that there is a manufacturing technology, manufacturing readiness level, which is very important. After all, you'll have to be able to manufacture what you envision, or all of these technologies that you develop, is a part of it is going to be manufactured. Now, the funding, just briefly here, but of course I'll come back to this in more details. Who's going to support all of these activities? Well, it depends. If you look at down in the horizontal axis, depending at what stage of this TRL level, technology readiness level, you are. If you are at the basic science, research, feasibility, technology development or demonstration, a smaller scale or larger scale deployment, they're different. And here is the starting from low risk, evolutionary, going to high risk, high payoff. Well, generally down here, Office of Science, government is in the good position to get into the high risk, high reward situations. And you see the Office of Science, and then ARPA, Applied Department of Energy Office. This is a plot for funding energy innovation at different TRL levels. So you see also application of a TRL in terms of communication and distribution of fund. As you go to here, you see these are low risk funding organizations, venture capital and small businesses come here, private equity, capital and large organizations, then you get loan guarantee programs, and government procurements come here. So, let me give you another example of application of TRL in product technology development. Here is from a report on hybrid electric vehicle development. And you see that on top you see research and technology acquisition, and there's a transition for TRL 6 and beyond, which is technically product development. So you look at this, the terminology very similar: fundamental knowledge, technology development, very similar to the productivity we discussed, and the technology validation. Here's going to be demonstrators or prototypes, product definition, product design and development, product demonstration, and production. Now, generally, when we discuss about technology transfer, our interest is at TRL level of 9 and beyond. Here's another example where TRL level is used by Canadian government for allocation of funds in aerospace technologies. It's very interesting. This is technology and funding continuum, current state. This vertical axis is millions of dollars. The horizontal axis, you see, this is the height of this is the amount of fund, is about maybe less than $40 million for all the projects that are within the TRL 1 to 3, basic and applied research. Then they spend more money, up to around $100 million, for TRL 4 to 6, which is technology development and demonstration. And lastly, the largest amount of funding is distributed for TRL 7 to 9. And that's how the nature of the work is. And not only here, but we also see more resolution here, and tells you who is doing the job. See, at the TRL 1 to 3, mostly the money goes, is blue, is research universities. And there's a government laboratories also, there are companies and others. And likewise here, you see most of the TRL 7 and 9 you see within the companies. So, here's another application. Now, we talk about, again, from basic research going to product application, And here's another example. It's a very important, very interesting example in the context of future automotive after-treatment solution. It is known that the exhaust gas from automotive, the highest amount of hydrocarbon and CO, carbon monoxide, and also nitric oxide, but particularly hydrocarbon, unburned hydrocarbon or partially burned, and CO is when the engine is cold during the warm-up phase. The reason is that the catalyst is not yet activated, and catalyst needs time to warm up and then becomes effective and efficient. So the whole idea here is the 150 degrees Celsius challenge. That's the quest is to find the catalytic material and components capable of reducing nitric oxide and oxidizing hydrocarbon CO with more than 90% efficiency at 150 degrees Celsius in an automotive exhaust environment. So here's a good example of a general statement that we would like to achieve, which is up here, read to you. And then you come up with a plan, or R&D plan, going through these phases, or TRL levels, however you would like to call it. And in the context of here, we will talk about more about simultaneity, but you will see very clearly simultaneity that at each stage, this is a plan started from 2013 and going to 2020. Each color here shows you different types of activities. And here's the TRL level from 1 to 3 and 4 to 8. And up there, see, first is going to be innovation, discovery, fundamentals. Then it's going to be applied R&D, process studies and modeling. Then from somewhere around here, there's going to be systems integration and industry, what comes into the integration industry limits. Here's the effort level. This is the time. For example, you see, if I draw a line here, see, at this time or year, there's going to be a lot of activities going on simultaneously. There's modeling of the bench scale, process studies, then there's going to be catalysis, kinetics and material properties. There's going to be modeling for processes and system integration and architecture requirements and boundary conditions. So this is essentially, this work is not an evolutionary change of technology. It's a revolutionary departure from existing technologies and new approaches. So therefore requires for R&D. And it also identified the research institution. The first thing that they did is to identify research institution partnership. Who's going to do the work? How do we want to partner to do the work that will search for the new material? The first thing is just the new material, finding the material that could even have any catalytic activities at 150 degrees Celsius, around that. In order to do that, we'll have to be very intelligent about it. Intelligently search for material universe. For possible solution, it should begin with a well-organized modeling. We've got computer program, we've got laws of physics, chemistry, and so on. Search algorithm available to expedite the discovery. And laboratory activities that are used to filter high throughput testing of potential candidates. So in here, in this range, the entire project timeline here, they wanted to shrink and instead of what it was that usually took about 10 years in the government laboratories, they made it, they shrinked it into 3 years. There are multiple parallel pathways going on. And in this zone, we have promising technologies passing this phase. It will enter the what they call it 2000, approximately 2016 and 17 window, where somewhere around here we begin the transition to industry-led group to scale up and test under exhaust-like condition, which is again relevant condition. And so this is equivalent to TRL fall to 8, which is item 5 here. Should be item 4, this is item 5. And finally, once in 2020, an industry and supplier-led effort at the vehicle level or simulated vehicle level demonstration would act as a proof of concept. Now, it's also nice to see an example of the whole process in a medical industry. Here is an example of Life of a Medicine by GlaxoSmithKline. You start some research and then development, there is going to be approval, and there's a life of this, and then generics come. If you look at the details, here it says you start, if you want to find a compound for some kind of a disease, let's say it's a high cholesterol or cancer, blood cancer for chronic myelogenic leukemia, for example. Research for drug targets and chemical entities. You see, right here it says about 1 million compounds. It's got to be an intelligent way to approach this. And we have the tools. We've got the chemistry, organic chemistry, computational modeling of chemistry, biological chemistry, and so on. There's going to be preclinical studies here. 250 animals. This is work here. An example: 1,750 animal phase 2-3 animal toxicology studies. There's going to be some license required, of course. Then there's going to be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and the phase 4. Here, 20 to 100 healthy people, safety and dosage issues, safety and efficacy. You see the number of patients tested here. And see, this thing goes down to 250 and 5, and ultimately to the one that works here. Now, the medicine has to be licensed here. Government pricing and reimbursement and negotiations here. And you see commercialization starts here. Continuous monitoring in this phase. Application for abridged approval of a generic. And if you look at this down here, it's very interesting. This from here to here typically is 10 to 15 years, an average of 12 years. You've got patents here, you like to last long, like 20 years, and then data exclusivity, which is 10 years, 8 years data and 2 years market. And 5 years is maximum for supplementary protection certificate. So, you see, there are similarities up there, but there are some differences also as well. So it's nice to see. This is just a preview so that you see the key processes involved in R&D activity. And now let's look at the R&D management and historical evolution. Well, see, here's an example of many of these mini discussions we're going to have throughout the seminar. For example, at this stage, I will ask, how do you think corporate leaders in your organization, and it's directed to attendees, view the R&D? And address the question in the following contexts. In the context of management and in the context of a strategic planning. Also in the operation context, what do you think the value of R&D is or should be in your organization? So experiences in the past with such discussions amongst the attendees have been extremely valuable and educational, and you see people coming from different organizations, from different industries, and there's going to be intra-group learning by all attendants. Now, this is, of course, a low resolution of what we're going to discuss in terms of historical evolution. we call this thing first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and so on. The discussion here is going to be looking at these kinds of components. For example, what are the attributes of the first generation R&D in terms of management and a strategic context, such as the philosophy? What do they think, in terms of organization, technology, and R&D strategy? And then from operation principles and perspective, how did people or do first generation R&D looks at the operation in terms of funding? How is it R&D funded? Resource allocation, targeting, priority setting, measuring results, and evaluating progress. We will go into details here in a seminar, but for now, in this sample presentation, just wanted to give you a feel. But prior to presentation, this, as you saw, that we're going to have a mini discussion so that before the people are kind of injected with this information, have their own free discussion of what they really think in their mind, and then we will go into what people have, experts have accumulated and different differentiation between different generations. Now, here's also a cartoon that depicts in a pictorial way differences between first generation, second generation, third and fourth generations. And we will go through that. First generation essentially is characterized by a creative leader with entrepreneurial skills, and all the other personnel often lacking formal scientific engineering, working for him, for her, as an assignment. Second generation, you see the concept of when most major companies, they started establishing large R&D departments. R&D departments typically had a more structured administrative scheme, and they had an administrator, which sometimes with a scientific background, rather than the first generation, which was a scientific leader. And here's a cartoon that says administrative leader and management. And then we went into third generation here, which the market revolution started, forcing R&D leaders to balance the portfolio of high and low risk projects. The market became important. So, leaders here had to acquire entrepreneurial skills to deal with risks, ROI, and etc. The fourth generation entrepreneurial leader, everybody is an entrepreneur, at least partially. So here, it is very important that this new organization be market-driven, have a long-term vision, be able to use incentives to motivate personnel. In other words, every participant must be market-driven and have some entrepreneurial skill. So, but however, here we'll go into more details and attributes from the management and strategic perspective and also operation. Why this notion of R&D generation is useful anyhow? Well, you will see different companies even now exist at different generations, just because calendar-wise we are in 2015 doesn't mean different organizations and companies existed at fourth generation or fifth. They're different. So especially because most companies, they constitute a mixture of generation, and because the relevant time period for these most likely differ depending industry segment, demographics, company age, research intensity, legislation demand, and so on. Therefore, there's a relevant question here. What really constitutes a generation? And why is the term generation useful to talk about? Well, my experiences are that the concept behind generation is, first of all, easy to understand and you could communicate. And it also points to different types of approaches with advantages and disadvantages, and describes it in some sense an evolution within the area. However, we should not lose sight that all of these things, the main objective and the aim is to assist companies to improve their R&D capabilities and also develop a common language to communicate between researchers and companies here. So, therefore, it is important to realize and appreciate that the notion of R&D generation is just one way to communicate. Communicate what? Different management approaches under certain conditions and contexts. So, this was intended to be a sample of presentation, and if you are interested, the entire presentation can be purchased, which for that please contact Advanced Technology Consultants for pricing and details and other matters related to that. Thank you very much.